Bienvenido gente, creadores, ¿cómo están? Estamos a punto de presenciar el State of Unreal 2026, así que vamos a ver un poquito esta intro que siempre nos ponen y a disfrutar. Así que te leo en los comentarios, ¿ok? Deja por ahí tu chat. Ey, esa música me preocupa. Pero, ¿cómo está gente? Bienvenidos una vez más. Eh, Me animé a hacer este directo porque este evento es especial. Así que vamos a ver qué novedades nos trae Unreal Engine, UEFN y qué cosas puede también aparecer dentro de Fortnite. Ya vamos a estar atentos. Si tienes por ahí alguna apreciación, déjalo en el chat, por ahí lo puedo leer. Y nada, vamos a ver qué sucede. Me pregunto si el audio, esta música de fondo, tiene copyright. Espero que no. Por si acaso vamos a bajarle un poquito el audio, el volumen de eso. Y a disfrutar, pues gente, a disfrutar. ¿Cómo están? Déjenme en los comentarios, en el chat, quiero leerlos. A ver. Han llegado a ver, si no me equivoco, ayer publicaron en la página de Unreal Engine un breve proceso de cómo hacen para diseñar los personajes de Fortnite. Y ha habido como que un poco de controversia porque ellos usan la IA para hacer retoques. Entonces hay gente a quien no le gusta, hay gente a quien le gusta. ¿Qué opinan ustedes? Ahí estoy atento a leerlos. Señores, esto está por empezar. Atentos, atentos. 4 minutos. 4 minutos y empieza el Unreal Fest 26. Hey, yo estoy un poco emocionado. Estoy un poco emocionado. Y quiero saber qué va a haber. Esto está por empezar, señores. 2 minutos. 2 minutos para que empiece este evento. Espero que se esté escuchando bien, amigos. Por favor, escríbanme. Díganme si se escucha bien. Es prácticamente el primer directo que estoy haciendo en el canal, así que disculpen si hay errores. Esto está por empezar, amigos. Me quedo en silencio, voy a mutear el micro. Hermoso, hermoso, hermoso.
Hi everyone, welcome to Unreal Fest. Are you ready? Let's go. Thank you so much for joining us here in Chicago, and thanks to everyone watching on the live stream. Once again, we're joined by luminaries from AAA game studios, indie teams, Fortnite creators, and filmmakers who are all shaping the future of entertainment. And we've got innovators from robotics, architecture, automotive, and so many more industries who are taking the power of Unreal to new frontiers. There are over 100 sessions and hands-on labs to choose from. So if you don't have the event app yet, take a quick snap of this QR code, download it, and build your plan for the next 2 days. Be sure to check out all the demos and games on the expo floor. Swing by the Learning Theater along with the Dev Lounge, where you can get some technical help from our team. So we're here to celebrate your success and give you a glimpse of where we're headed in the future. We have a lot of great stuff to show, but just a heads up, we're not doing a live tech demo on stage this year. The team's been really hard at work, making an awesome new engine release and building the foundation of Unreal Engine 6, which you'll hear more about later. Before we get into what's new, we want to give a shout out to a few groundbreaking projects. Last year, just before Unreal Fest, Sandfall Interactive released Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which, give it up, which became the breakout hit of 2025. And now, a year later, the game has received over 500 awards, the most awarded game in history. Congratulations to the team for all of your achievements, and we can't wait to see what's next. Arc Raiders is another huge success story. From October to February, the extraction shooter sold more than 14 million copies. Embark built the game's massive open world, leveraging UE5 and Epic Online Services voice chat capabilities to give millions of players an awesome social experience at a peak scale of 960,000 concurrent users. K-pop Demon Hunters was the most watched movie in Netflix history, winning 2 Academy Awards, a landmark moment for the animation industry. Sony Pictures Animation and ImageWorks transformed their pipeline by moving to real-time previs and layout, using Unreal Engine to cut production time by an estimated 25%. That's months of work saved. And because the team used real-time ready assets in production, we were able to pull off a Fortnite collab in record time. This was a full ecosystem moment that kicked off with a Demon Rush limited time mode, and it continued across Blitz, Reload, and Zero Build, with cosmetics in the item shop. We did all of this and launched UEFN developer tools in 2 months. Unreal continues to gain momentum beyond entertainment. SAS is an enterprise leader in enterprise analytics, AI, and data management. They're developing incredibly complex Unreal Engine digital twin simulations across industrial manufacturing, worker safety, life sciences, and other industries. Now, these digital twins help businesses make operational decisions in simulation before a single machine moves, a single worker is put at risk, or a single dollar is spent on the wrong configuration. All of this, games, animation, and enterprise solutions built on Unreal Engine 5. Now, we revealed UE5 6 years ago. Since then, release by release, we've shipped many features required to deliver stunning, high-fidelity open worlds running at 60 frames per second. We've also been working to unlock real workflow improvements so you can create faster and more efficiently. Nanite minimized manual LOD pipelines. Lumen nearly eliminated light baking. MetaHuman reduced the time to make great-looking characters from months to days to even minutes. Sequencer and Control Rig made it possible to animate really complex character performances in Engine without leaving the editor. World Partition made streaming massive open worlds possible without leaning on critical engineering resources. It's hard to believe it's been 6 years since the launch of UE5, but it's inspiring to see what you've done. To share what's in our latest release, please welcome mon ami, Simon Tourangeau.
Bueno, ha dado un pequeño resumen de las cosas que se han creado en estos últimos 6 años, ¿no? Sobre Unreal Engine, UEFN.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning. It's great to be back to share the latest on Unreal Engine. Over the last few releases, the feedback we've heard most from studios is make it fast, make it stable. So we've been focused on exactly that, performance. Take 5.7. We improved performance by up to 25% on the GPU and up to 35% on the CPU, giving you smoother frame rates. Today, we're releasing Unreal Engine 5.8, which is all about building on that momentum to give you more headroom, fewer hitches, and less friction between an idea and what you can actually ship. A big part of 5.8 is maturity. Systems that were experimental or beta in previous releases are now crossing the line into production readiness. The headliner is mega lights. Thousands of dynamic shadow casting lights and area lights in a scene at a fixed cost. What used to be a performance lift becomes a creative tool. Artists can light with fewer compromises, and teams can spend less time budgeting every dynamic light. Around it, LiveLink Hub, Movie Render Graph, Chaos Cloud authoring through data flow, Audio Insights, and Iris are production ready too. We also made it simpler to scale to the different platforms. Lumen, our dynamic global illumination system, now has a lightweight mode called Lumen Light, designed to preserve much of the visual impact at a significantly lower GPU cost. That makes Lumen viable where it wasn't before, including on Switch 2. And that work is already helping drive further nanite optimization efforts for the platform. Now, let's talk about something every developer in this room has felt. Yeah, the hitch, the frame spike, the long shader compile. The moment your game pauses and you wonder where all that time went. A huge part of that problem is shaders. So we've sharpened the compiler and improved deduplication to strip out redundant work. Less to compile, less to load, less getting in your way. In Fortnite, that work combined with content changes contributed to a 68% reduction in shader count. Faster cooks, faster loads, lighter memory.
Bueno, está hablando un poco de optimización, que en la versión 5.8 han corregido, supuestamente. Habrá que estar atento a eso y probar.
The bundle the GPU needs to draw an effect. Shaders, blend modes, render state, all of it. Miss one at runtime, and the driver has to assemble and compile it on the spot. That's your hitch. And those are the bugs that are notoriously hard to hunt. Luckily, we have just the guy to do it.
Así es, Jefferson, así es. Pero se puede entender más o menos lo que está diciendo, ¿no? Por ejemplo, ahorita está hablando, bueno, no ahorita, hace un rato, sobre la optimización que va a traer la versión 5.8. Más que nada con Lumen, el Mega Lights. Pero ahí está. Habrá que probar y ver si realmente han conseguido la solución, porque la optimización es muy importante.
The rollout is ramping, and we'll let you know more about this soon. Now, here's a brand new experimental feature we're shipping in 5.8. Mesh terrain. We wanted to move beyond the limits of height map-based landscapes where every point can only move in one direction, and the fixed grid means you can't adjust the resolution to add detail or optimize areas. Mesh terrain is a new way to author complex terrain without being locked to a height field. And it's more than just a mesh. It's partitioned for collaborative workflows, supports world partition streaming.
Sí, yo creo que sí, pero creo que va a ser al final. Ahorita van a sacar un poco de novedades en la nueva función, en la nueva versión, como el Mesh Terrain, por ejemplo.
Overhangs, tunnels, floating islands, shapes you simply couldn't build before. And because it's mesh-based, you can also control tessellation at the triangle level. That means adding detail exactly where it matters, while saving memory and performance where it doesn't. As you'd expect, you can paint material layers, but also additional attributes, and it supports virtual texture with automatic UV generation.
El mesh
Mesh
terrain
array uses non-destructive
se ve
modifiers
bastante
and procedural
interesante,
tooling,
¿eh?
so iteration becomes dramatically
Puede ser
easier.
algo muy...
Everything can be layered, reordered, combined,
Ok,
and
ha
adjusted
hecho
at
ahí
any
unos
point in time.
booleans.
So you can literally move mountains.
Se ve
It also
interesante, se ve
works natively
interesante.
with PCG
Me
and
gustaría
comes with
probar
an
eso.
expanded modeling toolset. But best of all, in our ongoing Fortnite optimization efforts, Mesh Terrain has a smaller memory footprint and runs faster than Landscape. Higher quality, lighter costs, more creative and technical freedom. That's Mesh Terrain. Another big focus of 5.8 is helping you go faster from idea to result. Performance capture has matured to scale from one operator at a desk to a full mocap stage with control over every recording device on set, including video. And we're taking that further. Earlier this year, Meshcapade joined Epic, bringing world-leading technology for markerless motion capture from video. We've already started integrating it into the ecosystem, and today we are releasing the MetaHuman Animator markerless motion capture plugin on Fab. You can drive a character's body, face, and hands from regular video. No suits, no markers, video in, animation out.
Esta función me gusta bastante.
For animators
Más que nada
pursuing
utilizarlo
feature
en
quality work, this is our most
el motion
significant
capture
animation release yet.
es
We've made
muy
high-end
interesante,
animation
me gusta
workflows more
bastante eso.
interactive, more intuitive, and more connected to the creative process. From sculpting directly on stylized rigs, to controls that live on the character itself, to a simplified timeline that keeps you focused on the performance. These are the same tools our animation team uses every day, and now they're available to everyone, and we're releasing the sample with 5.8. On the cinematic side,
Dice que tenemos
offline depth of field gets a major
estas
upgrade.
herramientas dentro de la
We
versión
now render the
5.8.
blur the way a real camera makes it, by sampling the scene from multiple points across the lens. So you get physically accurate defocus, even on translucency and thin geometry.
Bueno, ya. Estas
For productions working
son
with
opciones que debería haber
ultra-high
tenido hace
resolution
tiempo.
media, the new tiled mip-map video format gives you compressed video that holds up at scale. It only decodes the tiles and MIP level your viewport actually needs, so you don't pay to process pixels no one is looking at. So that's the flyby. If any of this caught your ear, you can find deep dive sessions in the Unreal Fest app. And if 5.8 is about reducing friction across the engine, there's one more place we're starting to do that, how people interact with the editor itself. But to tell you more, here's Michael. Thank you.
A ver. Lo del motion capture me ha gustado bastante. Es algo que a mí me fascina, así que por ahí me ha agarrado.
Thanks, Simon. Now, at times, making games can be hard, expensive, and slow, where the gap between what you can imagine and what you can make is held back by technical overhead. I don't know about you, but spending hours in a node graph trying to untangle and understand what's going on just to change one thing is not my idea of creativity. There has to be a better way to do this. So that's what we've been working on. Tools that enable you to build faster and iterate more. Now, Unreal has been built on a simple idea. Your source, your pipeline, your workflow. Give developers complete control over the tools and get out of the way. That philosophy hasn't changed. We're just applying it to large language models. Now, in 5.8, we've implemented an MCP server that acts as a bridge between Unreal and any model that you want. For this presentation, we're going to be using Claude Code, but you can use Gemini, your own custom model, whatever you want. Enabling the Unreal MCP is as simple as turning on the plugin, doing a bit of config, and connecting to the model of your choice. And everything you're about to see today runs on that setup. Now, these are still early days, and models will still do some really unpredictable things. However, with this
Bien, aquí
approach,
está hablando un poco
we
de
maintain the ability to
del plugin MCP para conectarlo con Cloud Code o Gemini. Eso está interesante. A ver, acá hay una prueba.
Code. You can see every message going back and forth. Cloud Code is talking to Unreal through the MCP server, reading the scene, and taking actions directly inside the engine. So let's start with something small, a modern living room. We start by giving the model some context, what we want to build, and whereabouts in the level. And to make sure everyone can follow along, we're showing a summarized version of each prompt as we go. But if you want the full details, you can still see that in the terminal window. We're going to speed things up from here for presentation purposes, but everything you're seeing is real work happening inside the engine. So we can ask for the basics, a sofa, a rug, and a coffee table. Then fill it in with chairs, a lamp, and a side table. Semantic search, which is part of the 5.8 release, pulls assets from your library that fit that description. And because this is Unreal, we can also manually add a chair. Describe it as
Esta es una función que se veía venir porque ya muchos programas están interactuando con la inteligencia artificial, por ejemplo Blender. Entonces ya es algo que tenía que venir sí o sí. Ya si no lo ponían era ya... A ver.
So let's take that same approach and build a city. You start by drawing the boundary. From there, you can decide where the districts go and what characteristics each one has. Highways cut through on your direction.
Definitivamente
And from those,
va a
the road
ayudar
network starts to
bastante
fill in.
a la hora de crear
Buildings come up.
assets.
The model here is using semantic search to find the right assets from your library and place them in the level. Ask for a forest around the edge, and it can fill that in. At every step, you're making the calls. And what do you end up with? It's not a rendered image. It's real geometry, real procedural content generation graphs that you can open, edit, and modify.
Puede ser, ¿no? Puede ser, porque por todo eso,
Other developers can work on their own sessions,
vamos a ver
building
si todo
assets and
eso
dropping them
sigue
straight
siendo
into the city.
gratis.
The road network adjusts, the blocks update, and the city absorbs it. Different people, different sessions, and it all works together. So how does all of this actually work? With the MCP server as the bridge between Unreal and your model, it gives your model the ability to read your scene, understand your assets, and make changes directly in the engine. And because it's open, you're not locked into any particular model or workflow. Now, while large language models are great at language and reasoning, they don't naturally think spatially. Unreal does. To help connect the two, we're giving you over 80 foundational procedural content generation building blocks, a library of examples, and skills that encode specific Unreal workflows. Now, this is experimental, and it's going to keep getting better. This is where you come in. Tell us what's working, tell us what's not. That's how we're going to make this better. Now that the city is built, we want to light it. Getting lighting right on Unreal is a skill that means touching dozens of parameters that all need to work together. Light balance, cloud materials, sky atmosphere, post-process. That's a lot to know. But by creating a dedicated lighting skill, you just
Yo creo
describe
que
what
sí,
you want,
yo creo que
and the
sí.
model orchestrates that all for you.
Porque
Ask
no
for a purple
solamente va a
dust.
crear, vas a poder
there it
modificarlo.
is.
Entonces, yo
Under
creo que
the
va a
hood,
servir
it's
bastante.
adjusting all those settings in concert. Then we can ask for overcast skies. And this is a good example of where the model gets things wrong. It misread the sky and tweaked the cloud material the wrong way. But you can see exactly what happened, correct it in the next prompt, and you're right back to where you want to be. Because models also have real-world knowledge, you can just say, Bogota at 9:30 in the morning. And it will go and figure out the sun position, direction, temperature, and atmosphere that actually matches that. And if you want to match something specific, you can take an image. So here we used one of Vancouver, and ask it to replicate that look.
Ok.
It uses screenshots
O sea,
to
mediante
assess
la
and
IA
iterate
vamos a poder
until it gets there.
replicar la iluminación, el
And
tiempo
everything is still editable.
de un lugar
Grab a
específico
road and move
real.
it. The city
Eso está
adjusts
bueno.
around it. Ask it to make a building taller or more prominent in the scene, and it does that. But then you can go in and modify
Me gustaría
any
saber
individual
qué
asset,
tanto
making it
detalle
exactly
tiene
the
ese
way that you
edificio.
want it. This isn't a
Porque
generated
podría
image that
ser
you're
un
stuck
cubo
with.
alargado
It's a real scene in
con
Unreal,
textura.
and you control every part of it. Now, let's look at one intersection. We wanted to add a hazard zone, flashing lamps, steam, and a sense of danger as the player gets close. That normally means days of back and forth across multiple disciplines. So here's what we did instead. The warning lamp already has a material, but let's say you want to add something to it. You ask the model to read the existing graph, build the new logic, and insert it right where it needs to go. You can then jump into the material instance editor.
Pues sí,
and tweak
como
the
lo habías
final values by
comentado,
hand.
vas a poder modificarlo.
Then you take a Niagara template and extend it, adding a single parameter that drives multiple emitters at once, giving you control over the whole effect in one place. You build out the HUD through prompting and UMG, status display, danger meter, warning states. Then blueprint logic ties it all together.
Ok, crear HUDs,
A
eso
proximity
sí me
trigger connected
parece,
to the material,
me
the
parece
Niagara
bueno, me
system,
parece
and the HUD.
bueno.
Walk in, and everything fires at once. All right, so let's run it. Lamps are off, it's quiet. She walks toward the site, the lamps come on, the steam starts rising. She steps inside, lamps are flashing, steam's pouring in, and the site is erupting.
Ok, eso sí
What
me
we've
pareció
shown here
genial.
today would take months to
Mediante
build
la
by hand.
IA poder
But with the MCP
ajustar el
server and
daño,
Unreal, our artists were able to make all of this in
crear el
days.
HUD, eso está
When
bastante
you lower
bueno.
the technical friction, you can iterate more and make better games. That's what we've built. This is really just a starting point. Bring your own primitives, your own examples, your own skills built around your pipelines. The more your team puts in over time, the more useful it gets for everyone
Ya
on the
veo
project.
que con la IA vas a poder crear
We're shipping the
ciudades
MCP server, the PCG
enormes.
primitive plugin, and the skills we've
Pero
developed as
¿cuánto va a
part of
costar?
5.8 today.
Ahí el detalle.
It's open, and it's yours to extend. Go download it, point your model at it, and see what you can do. If you want to go deeper, we've got 2 chances to catch our Tech Talk here at Fest. Come find us. Now I'm going to hand it over to Pat to talk about how some of what I've shown you impacts linear content creation in the engine.
Ha estado bueno esta parte con este plugin, el MSP, y conectarlo a alguna inteligencia artificial. Yo ya veo que va a ser una gran ayuda.
I've got a background in film and television. For media and entertainment, the MCP plugin that Michael just showed you opens up a wide range of new connections to LLMs, but also to image and video models like Nano Banana, GPT Image, Grok Imagine, Luma, Seedance, and many more. Michael was telling you
Sí,
about tools in the
definitivamente.
present, and I'm going to
Tú
cover
haces la
tools
parte
for creating
artística y
linear
que la
content
IA
that are
haga toda la
releasing early next
programación,
year
todos los
that give you
blueprints,
control over
y
these
que te lo
models.
deje listo. Eso es genial.
The standard approach to using an image model is to start by crafting a text prompt. In this case, I wrote a novel describing a fictional scene in Epic Motors, a 1950s gas station. But in professional situations where you have to hit story points, match exact continuity, and deliver what your creative director wants, you would typically communicate visually through sketches and pre-rivs. Unreal is great for that. So, to get started in Unreal, I scouted the derelict corridor scene from Quixel that's available on Fab, which I quickly customized to look like the gas station layout I needed. I worked in detail lighting mode, since I was just using this for blocking to this stage. I dropped in some of the appropriate assets from that map: shelving, a propane tank, a cabinet, and also made proxy shapes for the assets that I didn't have: a long counter, more shelving, a cash register, and an ice chest. Then I backed up and framed my camera view and animated a boom down and a push in that I'd later use for my shot. But before I tackled the full video creation, I had to create a single style frame, the visual reference of my scene. To do that, I used the model to combine a depth pass plus the prompt novel I'd written before. The depth conditions the models to understand the layout and the framing. Here's how that works using our new tools in Unreal. I asked Claude Code, connected by our MCP plugin, to use Unreal's movie render graph to create a 4K image, plus all the rest. Asking for an Unreal render to create the image was a signal to Claude Code that I wanted to give my model my depth pass, but use the creative look described in my prompt. I then fired off that request. And while it was being generated, I inspected the graph that it made for the task. Image models are hungry for helpful data and conditioning, and so I prepared a process that pulls valuable visual data from the Unreal scene and passes it to the image model.
Ok, un
In this
graph
case,
node
Google's
dentro de
Nano
Unreal
Pro.
Engine. Esto ya es
Now, let's take a look at this image
algo
more
loco.
closely. You can see that it did a great job matching the visual detail I asked for, but most importantly, it didn't place things randomly. It matched the composition of my Unreal viewport exactly. From there, I could start to iterate. For example, I wanted another tire on the floor, but I didn't have that particular asset because it was an image model creation. Using the new image
Bien,
segmentation tools
definitivamente
in
la
the editor
IA
to mask
ya
the
llegó a
tire,
Unreal
I
Engine.
selected both the mask
Vamos
and the
a
image, and with a
poder
predefined workflow, asked Claude Code to extract it,
crear
prepare it, and mesh
mucho más
it using
rápido,
Turbo 3.1.
definitivamente.
And then I double-checked that graph, and I supervised the work. Now, of course, this is not a real-time process, so after several minutes, I got my textured tire mesh. I saved it to the content browser, where I then pulled in the tire and positioned it in 3D space.
Ok,
And finally, I asked Claude Code to add
generas
the
la
tire to the
imagen,
image. Let's
lo
take a look at that
procesa,
result.
se genera el modelo en
So if we
3D
compare my
y
UE
listo.
passes with the tire in it, you can see that it put the new tire where I asked it to, and it made it look like a variation of the generated tire, not an exact duplicate. All right, now let's add something totally new to the scene by going back to the viewport for another round in 3D. I went browsing on Fab and found one of our junkyard car parts for Megascans. I picked the specific fender piece that I wanted that had a 1950s look modeled into it to leave less to the image model's imagination. I asked Claude Code to add it to my image and make it look like it had been newly repainted. And after another image processing step in Nano Banana, that was done. Okay, now that I produced my style frame, I was ready to go back to our new Unreal tools to generate a video of our scene. And here's my shot camera move again. If you recall, this is the move that I created at the beginning. Over on the right, I ran a sequence render node that represents the depth over the entire range. I'm going to use the same depth restyling process with the video that I did on the still image. I supply the style frame I just generated to the video model as a first frame reference, and you can see that I added a cat, just hoping for a bit of life. And then I set my video generation node to use Dance 2.0, set the resolution, added audio,
Bien, ver
and then I
el
was
trabajo, el render,
Once
perdón,
that
el render
process had run
final,
for several minutes,
pero con
I
ayuda
had a
de la
video
IA,
that looked like this.
está interesante.
So clearly, this is showing you that I can control the camera, but nobody controls a cat.
Ok.
All
Bueno,
right, let's leave the garage and the cat
habrá que
and
ver
move on to an
cuánto
apartment.
cuesta,
This is a different workflow
o
that
cuán-
we've been
no cuánto
building in
cuesta,
parallel
porque creo que
for
el
more
plugin
rapid
ahí
concepting
es
with
gratuito,
diffusion
pero
and your viewport side by
cuánto
side.
es lo que nos vamos a
What
gastar
you're seeing
para
here in this video is
una
the
vez
UE viewport
conectado
on
con
the
alguna
left that was streaming
inteligencia.
to a local Flux Klein image model on the right. The local model result isn't temporally coherent. It was stamping a new image on every frame and only running a few frames a second, which is why it seems slower over there on the right. But let me show you how intuitive it is to use. I prompted for sunset lighting at first.
Definitivamente, eso es lo que va a
If there'd
pasar.
just been a fire in this apartment.
Un
And then I
videojuego
tried something more
lanzado hecho
extreme,
con IA.
like being underwater at the bottom of a murky pond. The real benefit you get here is being able to go back to the UE viewport, interact with the assets, and see them repositioned through this new diffusion lens. Not only that, but you can try more illustrated looks like a charcoal drawing or even a watercolor painting. As models get more capable and hardware improves, it's not hard to project this workflow forward to a time when diffusion's real-time and temporally consistent. Okay, let's look at some other examples of Unreal Engine scenes restyled by artists in the engine using a variety of sources, some of which are premium environment packs from our friends at Kitbash 3D, and some of which are our own internal assets, including the city sample. Starting from quality source assets leaves less room for interpretation by the models. We think these new UE tools are a force multiplier that will give artists more opportunities for creative iteration on their work alongside the real-time animation, modeling, texturing, and virtual production tools that you've come to count on in Unreal Engine. So this is where we're headed. The MCP server that's enabling all this is experimental, and what you're seeing here for image and video creation will be available early next year. We're on this journey together, and we're aware that for these models to be truly useful, we need to focus on not just lowering technical complexity, but also giving you full creative control over what you're making. Thank you.
Pues yo creo que esta función es lo que más va a resaltar, la IA dentro
Thanks,
de
Matt. That was
Unreal
awesome.
Engine.
All right, so now you've seen more, even great features, workflow improvements that are all going to help you make awesome games and content. So let's talk about distribution. 2025 was a year of growth for the Epic Game Store, and we're off to a great start in 2026. In our year in review, we reported that December monthly active users reached 78 million, an all-time record for the Epic Game Store. And players spent $1.16 billion in the store across third-party and first-party titles. That's up 6% year over year. If you just look at third-party titles, player spending hit $400 million. That's up 57% year over year. And we now have over 6,000 games in the catalog from over 3,000 partners. We offer multiple ways for you to help your business grow. In June of 2025, we announced that developers would keep 100% of the first $1 million of net revenue per product per year, with an industry-leading 88/12 rev share kicking in after that million. We've got Epic First Run, which gives developers the opportunity to keep 100% of net revenue for the first 6 months before launching on other stores. And we also have Launch Everywhere with Epic, which gives UE developers a reduced engine royalty rate of 3.5%, down from 5%, when they sim ship their title on the Epic Game Store. Finally, we continue to push on Epic Rewards, granting 5% back to players on all third-party content purchases that are processed by Epic. Now, last year we had a 20% rewards boost through the back half of the year, and we're seeing players continue to spend at heightened levels using the rewards that they accumulated and earned during the promotional period. In fact, spending through the first 4 months of the year on third-party games is up over 40% year over year. So beyond these great incentive programs, we're really working to connect the Epic Game Store more closely with the Fortnite ecosystem. And that'll give developers access to an even larger player base.
Bien, me perdí un poco
Take
en
our
esto,
collab with
no
Hoyoverse
llegué a
as an
entender.
example. When players purchased eligible items in Honkai Star Rail on the Epic Game Store, they were granted a Stellaron Hunter Blade outfit that could be used across the entire Fortnite ecosystem, in Battle Royale or in thousands of UEFN games. So some players discovered Honkai Star Rail for the first time in Fortnite. Then they went on to spend on the game in the Epic Game Store, and their spend unlocked a new outfit that they brought back into Fortnite. It's a virtuous circle for both developers and players. We've got over 30 million, sorry, not 30 million, that would be a lot, 30 similar collabs planned for 2026, with more coming.
¿Qué es lo que se viene? A ver,
2027.
nuevas colaboraciones.
So we're delivering great incentives for both developers and for players, but we need to make the store experience better. And over the last several months, the team's been hard at work rebuilding the launcher. Our goal here is to dramatically improve performance with reduced cold start times and much faster browsing.
Ok,
We've also been
un nuevo
re-architecting the back end
rediseño.
of the store, which is going to allow us to ship
Diseño
new
nuevo,
player-facing features
refrescado
faster and more
del
frequently.
Epic Launcher.
We'll be improving search and discovery, adding a lot of long-awaited community features, and doubling down on delivering an overall better player experience. We are committed to growing the Epic Game Store, and we're not relenting in our mission to give developers access to a high-value global player base with the most favorable terms in the industry. You can learn more about our plans for the Epic Game Store in this session tomorrow. And now that we've covered a bit of what's happening in our ecosystem, let's hear from some of the teams putting it all to work. First, 20 years after Emergence Day, the Coalition is finally telling the story they've always wanted to tell. Darker, more alive, and running at 60 frames per second with hundreds of shadow casting lights. Then, Riot Games is doing something most studios would never attempt, rebuilding a live PC and mobile game with 300 million players on a new engine, all while keeping the live service running. And finally, the small team at Neon Giant set out to build the densest, most lived-in city they could have ever imagined, a city where every frame tells a story and every choice you make becomes a part of that story. 3 games, 3 very different worlds, 1 engine. Up first, please welcome Kate Rayner from the Coalition.
Bueno, se vienen nuevas colaboraciones. Amigos, ¿se escucha bien? ¿Se ve bien el video? Porque estoy un poco en duda. Creo que se está cortando.
It's great to be able to join you today. Gears of War will celebrate its 20th anniversary this year, and Unreal Engine has been the foundation of every game since the series first debuted in 2006. For Gears of War E-Day, we made the decision to invest in Unreal Engine 5 and start with a blank hard drive and rebuild everything from scratch to achieve the believability of a world in chaos. Emergence Day is the darkest day in our universe, the day the monstrous locust horde emerged from the ground to lay waste to humanity. And to truly feel the emotional impact of that loss, we needed to return to a dark and gritty visual style. Light and shadow do more than just set a tone, and with Unreal Engine 5, we've pushed our signature Gears style to the next level. So, let's show you a taste of what we've built. Welcome to the Pay and Save Superstore in downtown Kelowna.
Pido las disculpas.
In previous games, a space like this
Pues
was
creo que es mi
limited to 3
internet
shadow
el que
casters
está
in view.
fallando.
With megalights, we now have hundreds of light sources, all casting shadows at 60 frames per second on Xbox
Ahorita
Series
ya no
X.
podría solucionarlo porque sería tener que cortar la transmisión, pero
This TV display
espero
wall
se pueda
utilizes the
mejorar
animated area lights with light functions
la velocidad
that are
del
driven
internet
by
para
the
que
video itself
evitemos esos
fully
cortes.
on the GPU. They each cast eerie and unsettling dynamic shadows with soft penumbra across the scene. The Pay and Save is a great example of how we've created environments with geometry collection destructible assets like this tiled pillar. These dynamic objects cast and receive light correctly, so destruction stays visually grounded exactly the way you'd expect in the real world. Let's check out the freezer section. All these freezers have multiple area lights inside them to simulate that realistic lighting effect of the frozen food section of your local grocery store. During combat, bullets create a dynamic shatter point in the glass. When it shatters, all the pieces collide with the environment.
Genial,
using
muchas gracias,
hardware
muchas
ray-traced
gracias,
collisions
Jefferson.
with physically accurate,
Y lo siento de
translucent
verdad.
reflections.
Prometo en los próximos directos mejorar y solucionar ese
It's
tema.
amazing to see how many light sources there are in here. There are hundreds of them, from the small lights on Marcus's armor to the large spotlights on the ceiling. There is no way we'd ever be able to achieve this effect or have this many ray-traced area lights on current generation hardware without megalights. A staple of the Gears franchise, E-holes are back in Gears of War E-Day. So let's open some up. Without all the monsters in the way, you can see all the volumetrics and smoke lit perfectly. One of the things we're super excited about that was unthinkable in the past is having shadows on every single one of our muzzle flashes. This is a really great improvement that adds to the dynamic combat of Gears with a more believable firing experience that puts you right in the middle of the action like never before.
Ok, todo bien que pasen a un Real Engine, pero hay que tener en cuenta que como te digo, no quiero que se vea un Real Engine, ¿entienden? Cuando hay un videojuego.
Our game isn't
Entonces
limited
aquí
to just a single space. We can
siento
explore
que
the
es un Real
entire
Engine.
city of Kelowna with tens of thousands of shadow casting lights. Delivering E-Day with this level of visual fidelity has not been easy. But we can iterate so much faster with hardware ray-traced lumen compared to the baked lighting we used in the past. With megalights, our lighters are no longer constrained by the number of real-time
No sé
shadow
ustedes, pero
casters,
esa
giving them
neblina,
the
ese
freedom to
fog
light our game
que tiene de
with the
fondo
same
es
complexity as the real
O sea,
world.
yo veo eso y digo es un Real Engine, así de simple, ¿no?
And we have 100 times the geometric detail in our assets due to Nanite's micro-polygon rendering. All of these systems work together to create a highly scalable engine that allows us to consistently deliver a visual showcase across Xbox and PC. As developers, many of us know there is a difference between a compelling demo and delivering a fully realized vision at 60 frames per second. The Coalition is pushing Unreal Engine 5 and the hardware it runs on to their limits to reimagine the Gears world at an
Sí,
unprecedented
porque
level of detail.
pucha,
We
tenemos
can't
que
wait
salir
for you to see for
de
yourselves when EA
de ese
launches
círculo,
on October 6th.
de esa burbuja de que
Thank
todo
you.
se parece a un Real Engine, ¿no? O sea, todo se siente un Real Engine. Entonces, yo creo que ahí sí hay un gran trabajo, un gran trabajo por hacer. Pero bien que se hayan pasado a un Real Engine. Y pues hay que tener, yo creo que con la IA va a ser de mucha ayuda, pero hay que tener un poquito de control, porque yo creo que va a llegar el punto donde se va a sentir exagerado de que en vez de que hagas un efecto de una explosión manualmente, lo hagas con la IA y ya está, ¿no? Entonces yo creo que por ahí no va. Ok, estuvo bueno. Gears of Wars. A ver, ¿qué más? Dame show.
Hi, I'm Gina, head of tech at Riot on Teamfight Tactics, or TFT as we like to call it. TFT is an auto battler that we originally built as a game mode on the same engine as League of Legends. We built it fast, about 18 weeks from idea to launch, and then it grew way beyond what we expected. TFT has become a leading strategy game with more than 300 million players across the ecosystem, which is kind of wild to say out loud. We've just announced that TFT is moving to Unreal Engine with our next set, Enchanted Wilds. Rebuilding a live game on a new engine while it's still running is not something most games choose to do. It's years of work across engineering, art, design, and production, and that gets even harder when your game is still shipping new sets, events, everything to players on a regular cadence. But that's what we decided to do. I joined Riot to work on TFT, and about 6 weeks in, we made the call to move the game to Unreal. And pretty quickly, we realized this wasn't just about moving engines. It was about what became possible. Building on shared technology, reusing more of what we create, spending less time rebuilding foundations, and more time building TFT. One example is the gameplay ability system. It gives us a more structured and flexible way to build gameplay as the game grows. And for a game like TFT, where every set brings new mechanics, content, and ways to play, that kind of common foundation matters a lot. It gives us shared building blocks, abilities, attributes, and effects that can be
Entiendo
reused
hasta
across
donde
very
sé
different
que
parts of the
LOL
game.
no usa
And that
Unreal,
lets us move faster
pero
over time.
este juego
With
TFT
Unreal, we had to rethink
sí
how the
está
game was
migrando a
Architecture,
Unreal
networking,
Engine.
gameplay, even the way the game data is structured had to change. In early versions of the game
Sí,
in Unreal, it just didn't
definitivamente.
feel right.
Yo también creo que para
Performance was rough.
arquitectura
We had builds
ha
running at
sido-
around 12 frames per
ha
second in an
sido el
8-player
boom.
game, which I'm sure all of you can imagine was not exactly the target. So, the first goal for us wasn't innovation. It was parity. We had to get TFT back, and that meant reworking a lot of systems inside Unreal. Some gave us a strong starting point, others required significant customization, and some we rebuilt from scratch. For example, networking. As we built more of the game and added more content, we started to hit limits. With a huge number of gameplay actors in a match, the default replication approach wasn't enough to meet our server and bandwidth performance targets. So, with Epic's help, we evolved our approach, adopting Iris networking with push-based replication and fast arrays to get the performance we needed. The hard part wasn't getting something working, it was making it work at scale. Gameplay was another big one. We leaned heavily into the gameplay ability system. It's powerful and helped us get something up and running quickly, which, as many of you know, matters a lot early on. But TFT has sets, modes, and gameplay content that don't always ship on the same timeline. And pretty quickly, we realized we needed a better way to organize all of it. So we ended up using the Game Features plugin to give that content clearer boundaries and a more scalable way to share systems.
Ya con esto yo
and
creo
that gave
que
the teams more
lo vas a
freedom to build.
solucionar, ¿eh?
And then there's mobile.
Con estas nuevas funciones de IA yo creo que se soluciona.
Is that it runs on a wide range of devices, including low-end mobile hardware. That didn't change just because we moved engines. And while this has been one of the hardest parts of the migration, it's also one of the reasons we made the move. Mobile is a huge part of how people play TFT, including me, so we invested deeply in custom rendering, memory management, and scaling the game across devices, working closely with Epic to get TFT running where we needed it to. But we're still early in that journey. We're already sharing much more across PC and mobile than we could before, and there's still a lot more we can do for our mobile players. Content migration. I'm guessing a lot of you already know where this is going. TFT has thousands of assets across art, animation, VFX, and audio that had to be migrated. And every type of content broke differently when we brought it over. VFX alone was a massive amount of work. We weren't just converting assets, we were moving between fundamentally different systems. Getting thousands of assets into the engine was one challenge. Getting them back to the quality bar that players expect was another. And we really underestimated how much time this would take. So a huge part of the effort became building the tooling and pipelines to fix, convert, and validate all that content at scale. And that's where Unreal's extensibility really mattered. We could build the systems we needed to make this possible, because there was no world where we were rebuilding all of that by hand. And we kept running into the same pattern everywhere. Unreal gives you a lot, but getting from Unreal to TFT still took a massive amount of work.
Probablemente. Yo creo que, bueno, no es que creo, ya hubo rumores de que el Unreal Engine 6, si no me equivoco, va a ser la combinación de Unreal Engine con UEFN, ¿no? Y que vas a poder crear tu juego y decidir dónde lo publicas, ¿no? De manera independiente o dentro de Fortnite. Algo así va. Así es, exactamente. Va a ser fusionado. Y con la IA ya integrada, ya pues, ya más o menos se ve lo que se va a venir.
Because if we've done our job well, they won't be thinking about the engine at all. They'll just be playing TFT. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great Unreal Fest.
Bien, un juego más que está migrando a Unreal Engine.
I'm Tor Frigg, Creative Director at Neon Giant, here to talk about No Law, the next game from our studio. In our first game, The Ascent, our small team pushed the out-of-the-box UE4 tech to its limit to make a highly detailed, lived-in cyberpunk world. For our new game, No Law, a high-fidelity, immersive, first-person shooter set in the unregulated city of Port Desire, we knew that our best starting point would be building a game around the core feature set of Unreal 5, because a small team like ours needs to work with the engine, not against it. We realized early on that out of the box wouldn't be enough. We had to push beyond the defaults and build our own workflow inside UE5 to make the world we wanted. We're proud of what we did with The Ascent, and No Law is the next step in that same approach. Our constraint was specific. We didn't want the largest world, but the densest, a city that feels lived
Fortnite
in
es, digamos, el pilar de Epic Games.
Tells a story.
No sé,
Desire
perdón,
is
creo
shaped
que
by human clutter, cramped
golpeé
dark
el
alleys,
micro.
layered graffiti, worn stickers on electrical boxes. A story with every frame, from a messy
Pero
apartment
sí,
where characters go
como
about
lo
their
dijo
lives,
una
to
vez
the
Tim
skyline
Sweeney,
of the city.
es el metaverso, ¿no?
As a relatively
O
small
a
team,
eso van.
that ambition came with real challenges. We wanted extreme detail everywhere, but we also needed stability and performance without hand optimizing each location. For us, the answer wasn't a single system, but a shift in how we built the world. We prioritized density over scale, and we built a pipeline that let artists handcraft spaces without constantly stripping detail back and without relying on procedural generation. Nanite is what made that approach viable. It lets us keep a high level of detail across surfaces without treating every asset as a trade-off between fidelity and performance. Our custom implementation of FastGeo in combination with the world partition system enables a seamless experience that never breaks. It allows us to have details in every nook and cranny and tell a million small stories. In fact, we have more objects in any given frame than the entirety of the ascent. With this workflow, we can preserve detail and density in every corner, from the smallest bolt on a freighter to the city as a whole, with no invisible walls and no loading. We build tools inside Unreal to help our artists handcraft the entire city, alley by alley, building by building, block by block. To show Port Desire's full range as an urban city overrun with vegetation, we needed dynamic lighting. From the cozy, lush midday sun to the darkest, the most dangerous alleys where even the bright neon light does not reach. The challenge was maintaining a fully dynamic day, night, and weather system without unpredictable frame times. Lumen gives the foundation for fully dynamic lighting, and mega lights that our artists focus on the believability of the space instead of tuning every single light source.
Sí, con estas
Every believable
funciones
space needs dozens or hundreds of individual light sources.
que salió hace un
From the
momento,
smallest blinking electronic
que ahora,
warning
bueno,
light
dentro de
on a camera
Unreal va a
to
ser
the
muy
large
interesante
neon
crear
signs above a marketplace.
personajes así. Bueno, y MetaHuman, que ahora te permite crear pues, ¿no? prácticamente a cualquier personaje, cualquier modelo 3D, animarlo y ya está.
Once everything is dynamic, it starts to affect the gameplay in more direct ways. Players can shoot out a street lamp, flood a space with a flashlight, or they can leave an area in darkness and have the AI NPCs react to light and shadow. Shying away from
Yo
glare,
espero el momento en que digan
searching
que
through darkness,
vas a poder cambiar
or
tus
escalating
propios
when
personajes
something
dentro de
feels off.
Fortnite, ¿no? Por ejemplo, tu propio MetaHuman. Tu propio MetaHuman, usarlo dentro de Fortnite,
To make the city feel alive,
sería
we
un
lean
boom.
on the mass framework to
Pero
drive
eso
crowds.
pienso yo
NPC
que
density
sería
types shift based on
terminar
time
con
of
las
day,
skins.
region, and weather.
Y no
In the
creo que les
slums, a
convenga
storm
eso.
clears the streets, but in the more sinful parts of Port Desire, even heavy rain won't slow things down. Mass lets us simulate thousands of characters at once, over 3,000 at any given time, which is also more than the entirety of the ascent. So the city always feels active, no matter where you are. We're also using MetaHuman, paired with our own character randomization system. Together with MetaHuman Animator, we can generate and bring to life thousands and thousands of variations of characters, so that the main characters and the extras in the background are all unique. We wanted a world that reacted systemically to the player, without us having to hand place effects and destruction.
Pues sí, el proceso antes era más largo, pues, ¿no? Empezar desde la idea, el modelado, el modelado, el texturizado, el rigging, ¿no? Todo eso quedó atrás. Ahora solo te grabas un video, haces una acción, lo importas y listo, tienes tu animación lista.
We combined chaos physics and their own GPU-driven solution to support tens of thousands of moving objects simultaneously. The result is a reactive environment where smoke lingers, embers drift, and broken glass stays where it fell. Creating No Law has been the process of finding where the engine ends
Sí,
and our custom tools
porque
begin. Achieving
Mira,
this
yo
level of
no he probado
density,
todavía
light
Blender
complexity,
con
and
Cloud,
systemic reactivity
pero
was previously
sí he
impossible for a
visto
studio of our
algunos
size.
videos de otros creadores
By leveraging UE5's
y
latest
pues el
tech
resultado
to
a la
bypass
primera
traditional
no,
development
no es tan
bottlenecks,
bueno,
we have
¿no?
finally been
Entonces
able
tienes que ir
to
probando,
build
probando,
the
probando
uncompromised version
y esos son
of
más
the world we
tokens y
wanted to
más
create
tokens
for years.
y bueno, se traduce en más
We can't
y
wait
más
for you
gasto.
to experience it. Thank you.
Así que aquí habrá que ver cómo cambia, ¿no? Cómo han mejorado eso. Habrá que probar.
Hello, everyone. I lead the Fortnite developer relations team here at Epic, and I'm here to talk with you about what's happening in the Fortnite ecosystem. Every one of the games on the screen behind me was built by an independent developer. Small teams, sometimes just 2 or 3 people using UEFN, published into an ecosystem of millions of players. For those of you who have been with us in UEFN, some since day one, thank you. Your feedback has really helped shape the tools in your creativity.
Estoy de acuerdo
How
contigo.
more than
No es tan
75 million
inteligente.
monthly active users experience Fortnite. Your games are a growing share of Fortnite playtime. In May, we saw them capture 47% of all player hours, up from just 38% a year ago. And with over $1 billion now paid out to developers since the launch of UEFN, these teams are building businesses
Más de
here
$1
through
billón
engagement
de
payouts
dólares
as of
pagados a
January and
desarrolladores.
island transactions.
Bueno, es lo que dicen, pero
It's introduced more
mí,
ways to monetize.
a ver, ¿dónde está?
It's opened up new genres and helped developers with smaller, engaged communities thrive. Over 3,000 islands now earn more from in-island transactions than engagement payouts. And we're continuing to see a growing share of
sí,
total
yo creo
payouts
que
coming
esa
from
parte ha
in-island
sido
transactions.
bastante...
It's
Uy,
been
se
a
me va el
boost for
internet de
genres
nuevo.
outside of Battle Royale and Shooter, and these games now make up over 75% of all in-island
Al menos por mi
revenue.
parte, la IA me va a ayudar en la
We
en la
know it takes trust
configuración
to
de
build
los
on a platform that's
blueprints,
still
porque ahí
maturing,
como que sufro un
and
poco,
this year,
pero
stability and developer effectiveness is our
va a ser de
number
gran
one
ayuda.
priority. Back in March, we stated our goal to cut iteration times,
Bueno, están hablando un poco
and we've been making real progress,
de
getting the
UEFN,
time it takes to push
cuánto
changes
se ha
down
pagado a
by
los
an average of
desarrolladores
40% or so. That's even higher
y
for
cómo va la
larger
situación
projects,
económica.
and we've seen reductions of up to 70%. Plus, expanded live edit support makes iteration faster and more streamlined. Live edits are now applied directly in game mode, and the new edit list gives you a clear view of the changes as you work. The consolidated UI simplifies session controls.
Bueno, como desarrollador, el live edit sí es algo que era necesario, sí o sí, ya de hace tiempo, porque eso de estar iniciando sesión, mandando la actualización, esperar un buen rato para que cargue y ver si te funcionó, ¿no? Uf,
And
eso
alongside
era
hardening
tedioso.
the tools, we're unlocking more gameplay capabilities. Scene Graph, which is soon to be the foundation of UE6, is maturing quickly in UEFN and giving Fortnite developers far more control and customization than ever before. It underpins new systems like custom items, inventories, and as of our latest release, an initial set of workflows creating custom weapons and animation with Scene Graph. And there's much more on the way, including gameplay attributes, gameplay abilities, and Scene Graph UI.
Bueno, dentro de UEFN,
We're
Scene Graph
introducing
es
more and more major engine
prácticamente de lo
systems as
mejorcito que
first
tiene.
scriptable components, so that you can spend more
Te
time in
permite muchas
UEFN
cosas y ahora
authoring
están
gameplay
agregando más
and less time configuring it.
facilidades, ¿no?
We're also
Por ejemplo,
opening
el
up new
custom
types
weapon.
of gameplay with targeted feature sets. Creature-based gameplay tools just shipped with games launching to players this summer. And Fortnite Sidekicks allows developers to tap into the attachment players have already built with their own companions. Developers can now build pet battlers, cozy farming sims, and more. And we're expanding where those games come to life. Fortnite is back on Google Play and the App Store worldwide, and mobile playtime for UEFN games has more than doubled in the past year. We know that optimizing for mobile hasn't been easy. We're hoping that some of the recent feature releases, like native gesture support and touchscreen layout customizations and finer control over your HUD, can help you build more mobile-friendly games. These mobile features will exit experimental mode in August, enabling experiences and genres that feel more at home on mobile. Our recent Discover changes are already showing results.
Sí, eso,
We've cracked down
de
on
eso no hay
spam
duda.
and duplicate-
Vamos a tener
duplicate
más,
content, sorted
más
islands into
trabajos
clear genres, and
mucho más
personalized Discover
realistas,
to help your
mucho
games
más
find audiences
dinámicos.
faster. And
Pero
later
también hay
this
que tener
year,
cuidado
we're
con
gonna
eso,
be
¿no?
doing a
No
full
siempre
redesign.
algo más
Video
realista
everywhere,
significa algo mejor.
personalization across every row,
Hay que
and
tener
social signals
bastante
including
cuidado
like
con eso.
percentage right on the tile. In a big shift, Discover replaces the lobby as the first thing that players see when they open Fortnite. We'll be diving deeper into the Discover roadmap and the rest of UEFN ecosystem over the next few days. Our IP partner program enables any Fortnite developer to build with officially licensed content from major IP like LEGO, Star Wars, Squid Game, and more. Each partnership unlocks exclusive characters, environments, and templates that developers can use to create games they can't build anywhere else. One of the OG UEFN developers, Future Trash, has successfully brought their FOD IP to Fortnite and launched a hit game set in a galaxy far, far away. Their founder, Kevin, is here to share more about what they've been up to, so please give him a warm welcome.
Bien, bien. Hablemos más de Fortnite. ¿Qué se viene? ¿Qué se viene?
Thank you, Hannah. Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Marciano, co-founder and CEO of Future Trash, the game studio behind FOD. In 2022, my co-founders, Nate, Scott, Eric, and I, quit our jobs, and we wanted to build the next great party game. We were betting everything on an indie studio with one idea and a lot of passion. We learned fast how brutal that road is. Back-end infrastructure, discoverability, distribution, the walls were everywhere. By early 2023, we only had a few weeks of runway left. I flew to GDC with the Steam Deck in hand, trying to get anyone's attention to care about what we had built. That's when UEFN got announced, and we thought, why don't we bring our game into Fortnite? We weren't native to UGC, so it felt incredibly risky. After some experimentation with the tools and learning more about the blossoming creator economy, we could see the potential. We rolled up our sleeves and shipped our first game in under 3 weeks. We hit publish and got
No es mala
player
idea.
feedback
Mira, yo
almost
desde
instantly.
mi punto de vista, yo lo
And that's
veo
when it settled in. This
como
was going to be
que
our path
empezar en
forward.
UEFN para crear
And that bold pivot didn't
tus
just save our
juegos,
company,
tus
it changed our
mapas,
perspective on the
es,
future of the
creo
games
yo, el
industry.
punto de partida para
What
que te
UEFN
vayas
gave us wasn't just a
familiarizando
platform,
hasta el
it was direct
momento en que
access to
llegues
our
y
audience.
crees
No
dentro de un
gatekeepers,
Real
no publisher
Engine
approval.
tu
You
juego
just
y
have an
sea
idea, you build
independiente y
it,
lo
and players
saques,
play
¿no?
it.
Yo creo que
We've now reached the
por
scale of players we
ahí
genuinely
va el
never thought would be
camino.
possible as a small studio. From a MOBA that didn't quite land with the Fortnite audience to our first breakout hit, Boom Tycoon, we had the opportunity to experiment with a wide range of genres and discover what felt right for our creative sensibilities on the platform. And as a studio obsessed with world building, character-driven experiences, and building original IP, UEFN became our creative sandbox and our distribution layer at the same time. Star Wars has always been a creative inspiration to everyone on our team since childhood. None of us ever dreamt that we'd be able to craft our own game using the iconic IP with essentially total creative control. The droids of Star Wars, they do the hardest work, they survive the worst odds, and they get the least amount of credit. And we thought, let's make a game about them. Droid Tycoon was our love letter to these unsung heroes of the Star Wars universe. It's hard to believe that this game could have existed anywhere else. And that's how we see the future of how legacy IP
¿Cuánto
will
tiempo
embrace
creen
UGC
ustedes
native
que
creators
después
to
de-
foster an infinite extension
con
of their
estas
content
herramientas de
universe?
IA
That's where the
dentro de
most
un
exciting
Real
stories are
crear
going to be told.
un juego
And
así?
you all showed up to prove it.
Como
Since we launched the
este,
map,
si no me equivoco,
Droid
es
Tycoon
Tycoon
became the
Droid.
most played UEFN game in Fortnite by hours. It climbed to the second most played game across all Fortnite in its
Sí.
first weekend. And earlier this month, it set a new record for the highest number of concurrent players over a 2-hour period, which is the strongest performance ever achieved by an IP experience in Fortnite. Looking ahead, our ambitions are to continue pushing the boundaries of what's possible on the platform in terms of visual quality and storytelling. We will continue building our own original IP while also making immersive experiences for the franchises that inspire us most. Thank you.
Genial, genial. La diferencia entre ellos pues es que ellos ya son un equipo, ¿no? Ellos ya un estudio de videojuegos. Que podemos hacerlo también,
Thanks, Kevin,
pero
for sharing
toma
your
más
story and
tiempo.
creative process, and especially for bringing the Star Wars IP to life in Droid Tycoon in a way that has connected so deeply with fans. Droid Tycoon is a standout representative of some of the big highlights we had this year in Disney and Fortnite. Let's take a look.
Ok, estamos viendo un videito. Creo que Disney se trae algo grande. Sí, sí. Sí, totalmente. Como digo, ¿no? Es una gran ayuda. O sea, de aquí partes y lo próximo ya es algo mucho más grande.
Behold, giant food from the sky.
Disney por Epic Games, señores. Se vienen cosas grandes.
This partnership is anchored in one conviction. Disney stories should reach fans where they already are, and that's increasingly in games. And it extends beyond Epic and Disney. Developers, you're in this too, with the agency to build your own experiences and tell your own stories using the IP that you know and love. Early in my game dev career, my dream was to make games in the Star Wars universe. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, and it's been a great full circle moment for me personally to see developers experience the thrill of making their own Star Wars games for the first time. What's happened since we launched this IP program has exceeded everything we expected. Star Wars came to UEFN and developers ran with it. Galactic Siege, Escape Vader, Droid Tycoon, all built with tools available to everyone in this room. 8 million players in 72 hours overall. Galactic Siege had 6.5 million players, and Escape Vader had 3.4 million plays in just the first 6 days. And Droid Tycoon began just the first 6 days. And Droid Tycoon became the #2 most played island in Fortnite within a week. All of us at Disney want to
No había pensado en eso, pero es muy probable que pase lo segundo. Ahí vamos a tener un pequeño gran problema, ¿no?
Watch Party Island, fans were able to watch the first 10 minutes of the film before it ever hit theaters. This is a new model for what studio IP and the creative pipeline can look like, going beyond IP access and toward creative continuity and immersion in worlds that feel real. Star Wars, though, was just one chapter in a year where games meaningfully extended our storytelling. As Percy Jackson returned to Disney Plus for Season 2, Siege of Monsters, created by our friends at Gauntlet, offered a new way to experience that world, while our own Disneyland Game Rush translated the energy from Anaheim and Disneyland's 70th anniversary into playable form. And our Disney, Pixar, Lucasfilm, 20th Century, and Marvel outfit collabs continue to remain amongst the most popular in Fortnite. That goes beyond a traditional IP arrangement. It's iconic Disney stories in the hands of more creatives, reaching more fans than ever. And
Bueno,
we
aquí
can't forget our favorite animated.
Como resumen de esto es que Disney va a estar más presente en Fortnite. Así que no nos queda de otra. Vamos a ver más juegos sobre Disney dentro de Fortnite.
For itself. We were so excited to see players come into Springfield But we've also loved watching citizens of Springfield cross over into parts of UEFN. Let's take a look at some highlights from one of our favorite streamers.
Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Bardas reacts to an idiot playing Fortnite. Here's how Homer gets us to school every day.
Ok, acá un pequeño videíto sobre algunos creadores haciendo sus videos, ¿no?
Here's Dad having a meeting with my teacher, Mrs. Krabappel. Here we go, the titanic battle between two old men with breathing problems. Okay, dinosaurs and stormtroopers are tough for Dad, but when he's on his home turf in his Springfield island, he'll probably just choke on his own donut cannon.
"36 years in, the Simpsons still feel like everyone's family. But today, they're finding a new home."
Es muy probable, ¿no? Y además con esto de que hace un tiempito sale la noticia que despiden a un montón de... a muchos trabajadores y ahora nos salen con esto.
Springfield will be yours. Characters, locations, radioactive waste, all UEFN ready. But hey,
si no entendí mal, Springfield por completo estará dentro de UEFN.
Thank you to all the amazing developers in this community. We look forward to seeing what you create next. Now back to Epic.
Ok. ¿Qué tenemos acá? A ver.
From the first time we went supersonic to right here, right now.
A ver, ¿esto qué es?
The largest celebration of our game in front of the greatest fans in the world. We celebrate that history.
A ver.
To all of our friends here in Paris and those watching all around the world, this is the future. And this is...
¿Qué cosa? ¿Qué es este video? Ok, no entiendo. Ok. Este fue el video que salió hablando de Unreal Engine 6. Rocket League. Bien. A ver, ¿será momento de saber un poco más de Unreal Engine 6? Eso sería genial. Proyectos dentro de Unreal y que se muestren en Fortnite. Sería genial. Ok. Tim Sweeney hablando.
I'm here to talk to you about what we're building now for the future. Today, things are kind of awkward. There's actually two different ways to build stuff in Unreal. There's building Unreal Engine 5 games for standalone distribution on stores with massive AAA features. And then there's the Unreal Editor for Fortnite feature set and tool set that enables you to build a game once and then deploy it to all platforms live into Fortnite with its 80 million monthly active users. Now, each of them has some really cool, unique features, but is lacking the features of the other one. And so our big initiative to bring them together is the core of the Unreal Engine 6 effort. It's UE5 plus UEFN equals UE6 plus some more cool stuff on the way. The vision is that if you build things once the Unreal Engine 6 way, then you can have a game that you can ship everywhere, including the console stores, the PC stores, the mobile stores, and also ship live into the Fortnite ecosystem or any other Unreal Engine 6-based game ecosystem built by any other developer.
Bien, lo que hablábamos hace un momento.
In prior generations, we put graphics first in leading and announcing our technology. But with the Unreal Engine 6 generation, we're focusing first and foremost on the foundations of the engine to prepare for the next generation of game development and for gaming. And the most critical change here is the move to the verse programming language for gameplay development alongside the low-level C++ engine. And the reason for this is to enable massive scale code and content interoperability across games. Today we have a lot of content interoperability features. You go to the Fab content marketplace, you download a bunch of cool objects, you stick in your game, but then you have to wire them up and make it work yourself. In the Unreal Engine 6 generation, by having a unified set of APIs and a unified language that works everywhere, you'll be able to build smart assets that are completely portable between games and between projects and can be shared at any scale with the potential to have millions of developers collaborating together on a shared body of work that anybody can use. Another hallmark aim for the Unreal Engine 6 generation is to enable far larger game simulations. You know, the original Battle Royale movie in 1999 that inspired the Battle Royale genre of games, fortunately, just happened to have 100 people dropping onto an island. It's a nice coincidence because that's actually the number of, maximum number of players our code base could support running on a single thread on a server.
Algo que sí me gustaría es que, así como en UEFN hay dispositivos solamente para configurar, igual debería tener un Unreal Engine. Entonces yo creo que en Unreal Engine 6 podría pasar eso. Sí, definitivamente. Van a meter verse dentro de Unreal Engine 6. Sí, yo creo que sí también.
Another major aim of Unreal Engine 6 is something I first talked about at the SIGGRAPH computer graphics show back in 2016. There I talked about a potential future of gaming as an open system like the web is open, in which any developer can run a server, build a game, host their own content, and the user can go anywhere they want, from place to place, bringing all of their stuff with them, and tearing down the walls and barriers that exist between games to have a completely interoperable ecosystem. And you know, the Rocket League preview of Unreal Engine 6, if you looked at the very last frame of it, there was a little URL bar on top. The URL was verse://rocketleague.com. And we're tantalizingly close now to fully realizing this idea of an open gaming ecosystem with the ability to travel from game to game and independent developer freedom to build everything they want everywhere they go. And our aim at Epic is to
Claro, está en modo preview la última vez que lo vi, pero no sé si ahorita, a ver, dame un segundo y lo reviso.
And we don't want to be the next one, rather we want to be a partner to every company in the industry.
Ya, sí, perfectamente. Está para actualizar la versión 5.8. Así que ya se puede descargar y empezar a volverse loco con todo esto. Sí, 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 lo acabo de revisar. Sí está. Yo ya lo tenía instalado en el modo preview, la versión preview, y ahora me sale actualizar. Así que ahí está.
But right now I'd like to introduce Marcus Wasmer to talk about the architecture of Unreal Engine 6. Thanks.
El gran Tim Sweeney, señores. Gracias a él tenemos Epic Game estoy hablando. Gracias a él tenemos un Unreal Engine.
Okay, thanks Tim. So let's just take a second look at the recent history of Unreal Engine. So Unreal Engine 4 opened the engine to everyone by making the tools free to use and the source accessible on GitHub. And UE5 reinvented how worlds are built, helping you go bigger, add density and dynamic detail, and do it faster than ever before. UE6 has a different proposition. It's about evolving how we ship and operate our games. That said, UE6 will keep doing the things you want in Unreal Engine to do.
Si te ha pasado, mejor lo eliminas y lo vuelves a instalar de cero. Que sea una instalación limpia.
Mobile is increasingly capable. However, we believe for UE6 that there are three things about game development that need to change at the same time. First, gameplay programming needs to get simpler for creating persistent, live, large-scale worlds. And Verse is the foundation for Epic's future programming model. It's a next-generation language purpose-built to power massive, persistent game worlds at scale, where global state just works and transactionally correct concurrency is handled by the runtime. We've built a modern high-level gameplay framework on top of Verse that gives you a true foundation to build games and experiences easily and to share their interoperable components between games. You'll hear more about our goals and architecture for this programming model from our technical director on the project in a few minutes. But for now, let's talk about the second guiding principle of UE6. Content and code should be portable across games and even engines. Our goal is to give the games industry a whole new way to grow our ecosystems with cross-promotion, portable player value, and to really lean into all the positive sum dynamics that Metcalfe's law predicts for connecting experiences and social graphs together. And we're going to do this with a determined effort to move UE beyond just extensibility and into open specifications for interoperability. Where existing standards such as GLTF or USD are capable of fulfilling our needs, we'll make them first-class formats within the engine. And where a standard doesn't yet exist that serves the needs of game ecosystems, we'll open up Unreal's own systems as open specifications with Verse APIs, defined asset conditions, and documentation that any engine, tool, or studio can implement against. And Fortnite Cosmetics will be our first real proof point of portability. We're going to start by moving the base system to an open UE6 module that's usable by all games. And this means that you'll have the option to use the player's entitled Fortnite outfits in your own games, and you'll get the tools to build outfits for your own games that work inside Fortnite. And we're tackling this problem first because we want to prove things out with a system that's complex enough to be a meaningful existence proof of the idea, and one that inherently comes with a ton of player value by respecting their purchases across an interconnected ecosystem of games. We see this as the first step towards building a shared economy for smart assets, functional assets with logic and functionality that work across games to recognize players' time and spending in a better way. In the end, this isn't really a Fortnite story. It's just about proving that such a mature, complex system can work at scale, and that every game that works with these systems will immediately benefit from them. Happily, we're taking the first concrete steps to such an open e-system right now. MetaHuman has been adopted by some of the most successful games in the world and is rapidly becoming a standard for digital characters. And that's why today we're announcing the MetaHuman Dev Kit, opening up our rig logic and MetaHuman DNA toolsets under the MIT license so that you can deliver MetaHumans in any game, any engine, any platform.
Okay.
To learn more?
MetaHuman ha sido liberado, prácticamente.
Yeah.
Lo vas a poder usar en cualquier programa.
Talk right after this. All right, moving on, no tech presentation would obviously be complete without a conversation about AI. So to get one of the fun talking points out of the way, there's some speculation going around that game engines will be superseded by promptable world models. And we don't actually think that's what happened next. What does, we think, is much more interesting. That AI-assisted game creation will tighten iteration loops, reduce time-consuming manual setup of levels, character rigs, particle systems, getting bone weights, adjusting lighting, all of the manual work required to translate professional, creative intent into performant and cross-platform games. And crucially, Unreal Engine is uniquely placed to be the efficient, cross-platform, high-fidelity runtime that will remain the substrate on which much of the world's best games run. Thus, for UE6, we see LLMs, Gen AI models, and tools like Claude, Gemini, and so on, as playing a central role in building content faster with the creative control that you need. And as you saw earlier, the future of these workflows is a fluent translation layer between natural language intent and your production pipeline. Our goal for UE6 is to greatly reduce the tedious work in authoring content to leave more time for creative exploration and increase the amount of iterations a team can make to polish their content. UE6 will ship with these workflows battle-tested against internal development and in UEFN. And while we've mostly been showing and talking about content creation, coding and engineering are important as well. Internally at Epic, we've been doing a lot of investigation to see what works and what doesn't. And we recently opened up pretty broad usage for code generation and AI analysis across our back-end, engine, and game development engineering teams. We've had a lot of great success stories. We've had particular success with people writing custom tools for their own work, fast code indexing tools for helping LLMs deal with large code bases like UE, fast incident response analysis, automated root
el
cause
asistente de
analysis for
IA
crashes,
en
automated
UEFN
test
hubiese tenido
generation, and of
alguna
course the wins you'd expect
actualización,
on
algo.
back-end service development.
Pero
But what's
no, hasta el
interesting is that most
momento
of those
no,
cases aren't even generating mainline Unreal
no
Engine
habían.
code yet, though that'll come. So you can expect Unreal Engine 6
Aunque
to
creo que ya
include all the key
sería
learnings
en vano,
for
¿no?
using AI for engineering along with content workflows. Okay, so we know you obviously have lots of questions about the transition from UE5 to UE6, so let's talk about that for a second. UE6 converges two threads of development we've been running in parallel. UE5 for high-end standalone game and content development, and Unreal Editor for Fortnite as the live environment where our new programming model is getting battle tested. UE6 will combine these two products into one. As UE5 and UEFN merge into one editor, you will be able to ship traditional games and projects exactly as you do today. You'll be able to ship directly in Fortnite, or ship your own ecosystem and optionally make it compatible with ours.
Pues sí,
You'll have an easy
es
path
algo
from
que
one
iba
to
a
the other.
pasar.
Actors
Así
and
que la
blueprints
versión
will
de
be
Unreal
in
Engine
early
6
versions
será
of
uno
UE6.
solo.
Eventually, these will be deprecated when the new framework is sufficiently mature, and you'll have conversion tools to move projects from one framework to the other. Also, a new UE6 mainstream will be on GitHub later today, publicly visible, just like the UE5 stream has always been. Any remaining UE5 changes will merge to UE6 to not get lost, but not vice versa. And in addition, Fortnite development will be attached to the UE6 stream, so you can see all of our ongoing work live and cherry pick any changes as needed. However, this stream is not meant to be any kind of alpha. It exists just to be transparent with where we're going. And while we're not currently planning another official UE5 release after 5.8, we do reserve the right to ship a 5.9 if needed. You never know.
Okay.
So when can you get your hands on UE6? We plan to release in early access at the end of 2027-ish.
Bien, Unreal Engine 6
We know how
en el
game dev works around here.
2027.
However, Epic will be shipping things on the tech stack ahead of the early access release, just to make sure we get it right. 6.0 will be released 12 to 18 months following the early access release, and we expect just about everyone should be able to move their projects to 6.0, as it will still have all of the mainline UE5 tech, except for Cascade, where we're killing that one. That one's not going to make it. So get on the Niagara train. That said, we will be taking the opportunity to make some big architectural and other breaking changes that we wouldn't normally do in a point release, so you can expect a similar upgrade path from UE5 to 6 as we had for 4 to 5. We'll keep everyone up to date on our progress as development continues, and now Curtis is going to come up and give us a more detailed breakdown of the gameplay architecture. Thank you.
Okay. Bien. De aquí lo que me gustó es que MetaHuman ha sido liberado, así que por ahí va bien.
Thanks, Marcus, and good morning, everyone. I'm Curtis. I work on the gameplay architecture in Unreal Engine, and today I'm excited to talk to you about the new gameplay framework for UE6, which begins with Verse. Now, Verse is a next-generation programming language, purpose-built to power massive, persistent game worlds at scale. We originally released it 3 years ago in UEFN, where we could grow it to become the foundation for UE6. And Verse draws ideas from functional, logic, and imperative languages, and it should feel immediately familiar to anyone who's worked in languages like C# or Python before. But it also has some unique features aimed at solving the complexity and scaling problems of modern game development, starting with this unique software transactional memory model, or STM. Now, all functions in Verse run as part of atomic transactions,
Va a
which can
ser
be rolled back
Unreal
and
Engine 6
resimulated
el
as
único
needed.
programa.
And this lets us do a lot of interesting things in our games.
Unreal Engine 5 y UEFN se van a fusionar, y de esta fusión sale Unreal Engine 6. Así que no existirá más adelante UEFN.
And pretending the code never ran at all. Now, Verse's transactional memory model can also help us address another big problem in game development, building enormous worlds with larger player counts. And today, one of the big limiters to really building larger games comes down to server technology. Scaling a game to run on multiple game servers requires a fundamental rethinking of your entire game's architecture. Well, with UE6, we're working to build a full distributed software transactional memory system to address this. So here's the idea. We take your existing single-threaded style Verse game code, and then we distribute it across multiple servers. When an object's needed in one server, the Verse runtime rolls back the current transaction, migrates the object over to the server, and then reruns the transaction with the object now present. And this is all done in a way that retains the transactional consistency of the original program. And finally, with Verse, we wanted to make saving game data way simpler. So the Verse runtime can automatically synchronize and save any global state for the program, and then share it across all running instances of your game or an ecosystem. And to the programmer, what this means is that setting up something like save state for a player is as simple as setting a single global map of player to save state. No more having to set up databases or coordinate schemas between your game and other backend services. You can do all of this without ever leaving Verse. Now let's take a look at how Verse fits into the bigger UE6 gameplay architecture. So at the foundational level, we have the Verse runtime, along with all the UE systems that exist today, like rendering, chaos physics, meta sounds.
Bueno, tiene sentido, porque si ya desaparece UEFN, Unreal Engine 6 pues, pasa a tener todo lo que tenía. Ahora, lo que puedo entender es que Unreal Engine 6 será la versión, digamos, con opciones más fáciles para poder realizar un videojuego.
This lets us use the Verse compiler to validate all of our data in a unified manner across the entire engine. For example, if you change a parameter in a particle system, you'll immediately know where in code needs to be updated to match. And finally, we'll be introducing high-level frameworks for common game systems like characters, weapons, and vehicles. Now, building with these frameworks helps speed up development, but it also creates content that can be shared widely across games and ecosystems. So imagine grabbing a car from Fab, and instead of simply getting a skeletal mesh and some animations like you might today, you get a fully working Verse module for a car that functions across all of your games. With the UE6 gameplay framework, we're envisioning a world where enormous amounts of code and content is being built and shared between these projects, with Verse providing strong backwards compatibility guarantees to help the ecosystem grow sustainably. Of course, we'll need a place to store all this code and data, and here to talk about that is Matthias.
Bien, bien. Bueno, Unreal Engine 6 va a traer un gran cambio definitivamente, ¿no?
Thank you, Curtis. I'm Matthias Jansson. I work on developer tools, and I'm here to talk about our version control system, Lore. As we continue to scale our platforms and services, we run into many challenges when it comes to data storage and version control. We need something that can handle large binary data sets, scale easily across the globe, and provide secure data isolation in a shared multi-tenant environment. We also need to make it easy to use for everyone, not just programmers. We looked at the available tools and came to the conclusion that none had everything we needed. Git, for example, it's excellent at what it was built for, distributed development of source code. But game development has huge amounts of binary data and content, and rarely needs everything on your local machine. Git doesn't really work well under such requirements. Other commercial and proprietary systems were also considered. But our foundational tools have to be open. Open specifications, open protocols, open formats. Anything less, and the people relying on them can't extend, audit, or trust them. So we decided to build Lore from scratch, and we designed the data model to meet our requirements from the ground up. We made scalability and performance core tenets from day one, and this is where most of Lore's technical innovation lives. It combines an efficient large asset handling with a free branching model, so teams can iterate quickly without sacrificing workflow flexibility or storage efficiency. And Lore will grow with you, from a zero-config, single-service setup for small teams, all the way to multi-region, multi-million user deployments like UEFN, without requiring your team to fundamentally change how you work. At the heart of Lore is an efficient, content-addressed data store. Every file, every directory, every revision is identified by what it contains, not where it lives. Identical pieces of data are only stored once. Lore gives you direct access to that storage platform, so you can build your own applications and pipelines on top of it. Lore's version control uses this storage platform to let you work on multiple things in parallel, switch between them freely, and collaborate in safe, isolated spaces without worrying about how it scales. Lore's sparse, binary-first storage architecture fetches only the data you actually need for the revisions and branches you work with, supporting projects of any size. Large binary data is stored in smaller fragments, allowing partial deduplication and highly efficient parallelized data transfer of any file. That same data model is what lets Lore scale out across the infrastructure. As you grow, Lore lets you transparently add layers of additional servers from the local machine out through edge and regional caches and up to a durable global store. And because access is authenticated and authorized at every layer, that scale never comes at the cost of control.
Me perdí un poco en esto,
Every
no,
server enforces the same access
no
policies.
llegué a entender muy bien de qué está hablando. ¿Qué es Lore?
Globally distributed team,
No, ahí
that
sí me
means
perdí.
that users in different
A ver si alguien llegó a
can hit
entenderlo,
their nearest
los
cache,
leo.
and the global source of truth is never the bottleneck. Everything Lore does, data storage, version control, is exposed through a single complete API. And on top of that API, we built the tools you would expect. A command line interface, a desktop application, and in the near future, an integration in Unreal Editor. And these tools are all built on the same API and library. This API-first design makes Lore easy to extend and integrate into any development pipeline. Your tools and applications can easily use Lore through the API in the language you want to use. Though we're just scratching the surface here, I hope this gives you a sense of the power and potential of Lore. And it's already used in production environments. It powers the UEFN ecosystem, where it's been known until now as Unreal Revision Control, providing version control and data storage for everyone's content pipeline. We have already started transitioning to use Lore as the primary version control system for development within Epic, and we plan to be fully using Lore by the UE6 launch. We built Lore to address scalability and efficiency challenges we have at Epic, and as we talked with many of you, we heard similar challenges echoed across the industry. And that led to a bigger realization. If we're trying to foster a truly open ecosystem, one we all build together, then a system shaped behind closed doors would fall short. And that's why we're announcing Lore as open source today. All the source code. Thank you.
Ok. Lo que llegué a entender es que Lore,
along with
que no sé qué es, francamente,
es
es open source a partir de ahora.
MIT license and free to use. This release shouldn't be viewed as a perfect or complete package, but as an invitation to you to extend it, challenge it, and help shape it into something even more powerful together. So, if you're interested in learning more, head to lore.org and come to my session later in the show for a deep dive discussion on Lore's architecture.
Ok, lo voy a buscar para ver exactamente qué cosa es. Ok, regresamos con Tim. Tim, danos buenas noticias.
Open source releases and the first of many to come as we go about building more and more standards for interoperability for the future of gaming. And now I'd like to go and talk about the game business, which is in a time of both crisis and also opportunity. On the upside, there's a new generation of gamers coming in with new tastes in games, and they're playing games at a higher rate than any previous generation before. And the biggest games, like Fortnite, are once again growing and thriving. But underneath this, there's a serious challenge to AAA developers, and that's that a huge number of the new releases of major games are failing now. We're seeing often hundreds of millions of dollars of dev costs followed by tens of millions of dollars of revenue, and the dev costs are continuing to grow. It feels to many like a tidal wave is sweeping over the AAA game business. I'd like to back up. Everybody has their theory for why this is happening, but I'd like to back up and identify kind of the key generational changes and trends that are behind this. And because if we want to come up with an honest solution, we have to accurately identify the problem. And one of the key trends is that gaming is increasingly becoming socially driven. In the old days, it was you decide to play a game, you download it, you may play it by yourself, or maybe play multiplayer with whatever strangers show up. Nowadays, it's much more about you getting together with your friends and then deciding what to do together online to play a game or experience. And this social increasing angle of gaming is creating a massive advantage for big games and big ecosystems because a game with a lot of players is much more likely to contain a lot of your friends. And a long-established game with a huge player base has a much easier job of retaining players than a new game has of attracting new players. Thus, we've seen a lot of the major new multiplayer games not gain a sufficient community and momentum to survive, though in the past they might have. The other big change that's affecting gaming is that the economy is shifting from buying games to buying things in games. And whether you're a fan of this or not, the arithmetic of it is undeniable. And this is another thing that reinforces the success of very large existing ecosystems in games and makes it ever harder for new entrants to get in. And that is if you've been playing a game for a long time and it has a huge player base, then you can buy with confidence knowing that the things you purchase will still be useful to you days, weeks, or years later. Whereas when a new game comes out, it's a much more difficult decision to spend. You're not sure if you're going to play it next day, next week, next month, and are much less likely to spend. And the final trend that's affecting gaming is that the market for players' attention has become extraordinarily competitive, more so than I've ever seen before in my lifetime when we were competing with lame television and other things that trend almost into vice, all competing for people's times, all very effectively. And so to overcome these trends, the game industry, whether we like it or not, is reorganizing itself. And there are kind of two big
Tim, por favor, no te me pongas nervioso.
As these problems reverberate throughout the industry. One view of the future is that Roblox grows and eats gaming. A lot of people are saying this online. But what you have there is a centralized platform with a single gatekeeper that commoditizes all content, takes more than 70% of revenue, and has 450 million users on board. And so that's a real challenge to game developers. But we believe in a very different future, and a much brighter one for the people in this room, and that is that a future of high-quality gaming rising to the challenge and linking up our content, linking up our communities, and linking up our economies to deliver fun and to serve gamers with great games in a way we've never done before. And to accomplish that, we're going to all need to change the way we build things. We're going to need to build better games, we're going to need to build them more efficiently, and we're going to need to design up front and build for connected games, where all of our player bases are connected socially and our economies are connected so that players, instead of seeing these as isolated products, see them as part of a global ecosystem that all game developers participate in together. We want to work with all of you and with all of the game developers in the industry to achieve
¿Cuántos de ustedes, amigos, han creado algún mapa? Te leo aquí en el chat. ¿Alguien ha creado algún mapa dentro de Fortnite? ¿Cómo le ha ido? ¿Ha sido bueno? ¿Ha sido malo?
YouTube and TikTok and everything else that people
Estoy
are doing
atento
online.
aquí.
And this was very much on our minds when we set out about building Unreal Engine 6.
¿Cuántos han recibido un pedacito de esta torta?
Lego, and other AAA game developers, when we've been building increasingly close partnerships to them to build this together. It's very clear, Fortnite, 80 million monthly active users, that's quite a lot, but we realize that this is not enough for Epic to do it alone. To build the ecosystem of the future, we're going to have to build it together. And I think the thesis for that is very optimistic, that between all of us and the world's best games, many of which use Unreal Engine, and many of whose developers use Unreal Engine, and many projects, we have billions of active users. And so we have the opportunity to form up into Team Open and to define the future of gaming together again. And that's exactly what we want to accomplish in this generation together with you. So that's what we're doing. Thank you very much for coming here to Unreal Fest. And remember, where else in the world can
Vamos, Tim,
Fortnite
dime algo
creators get
más.
together with AAA game developers and filmmakers and architects and car designers and people at Lockheed Martin who are designing things they're not even allowed to talk about here, and actually speak the same language, the language of Unreal and content and code and development. So I hope you have a great time and have a great opportunity to meet up with lots of people. Thank you very much.
Sí, yo creo que, bueno, no es para todos, ¿no? Pero cuando llegue la versión 6, creo que se van a animar a formar parte de eso. Así no lo quieran. Pero bueno, lo que puedo rescatar es que MetaHuman ha sido liberado. Ya se puede usar en todas las plataformas, me refiero, cualquier programa. ¿Qué otra cosa más hablaron? El Mesh Terrain también está muy bueno. Y pues que ahora ya se puede actualizar a la nueva versión 5.8 y probar las nuevas funciones. Ah, la del Motion Capture. Eso también estuvo bueno. Capturar animaciones solo con un video. Uf. Está buenísimo, buenísimo. Sí, sí. Es una... Nos obligan disimuladamente, ¿no? Pero ahí está. Ahí está. Bueno, dentro de los planes es que Fortnite sea el metaverso, pues, ¿no? O sea, tú entres y ya no solo entres a jugar, sino puedas irte a otros lados. O sea, ese es el plan, hasta donde yo, si mal no recuerdo, hace unos años dijeron eso. Y bueno, con Disney, cuando se integró, creo que ya tuvo más sentido eso. Estuvo bueno la transmisión. Tuvimos un poquito de error por ahí con el internet, pero creo que se pudo ver bien. Creo que se pudo ver bien. Uy, se acabó. ¿Qué me sacas ahí? Otra cosa que no debe. Ay, ay, ay. Sí, bueno, con el Mesh Terrain lo que llego a entender es que es una... A ver. Bueno, como te decía, perdón, se escuchó otra voz por aquí. Como te decía, el Mesh Terrain está dentro de la opción Landscape, si no me equivoco. Ahora voy a revisar bien porque se supone que es una nueva función dentro de eso. A ver. Los mapas extensos, sí, pues hay que revisarlo. Ahora que termino la transmisión me pongo a actualizar y a probar para empezar a sacar videos. Tengo que seguir publicando más tutoriales. Bueno, amigos, espero... A ver. Espero que les haya gustado bastante esta transmisión, no sé, quizá me animo para una próxima transmisión, ¿no? Puede ser. Ir creando en Unreal Engine y mientras transmito. Sí, puede ser. No sé, quizá me anime. No soy mucho de hacer transmisión, pero podría ser. ¿Quién sabe? Listo, amigos, eso ha sido todo. Espero que hayan disfrutado de la transmisión y pues nos vemos en un próximo tutorial aquí en el canal. Recuerda que dale like, suscríbete. Claro, un video probando las novedades. Eso es de ley. Ahora mismo termino esto, me pongo a actualizar, me pongo a probar todas estas novedades y a sacar videos. Eso sí, de ley. Listo, amigos, muchas gracias a todos los que estuvieron aquí. Y ahora sí, me retiro. Nos vemos y atentos que se vienen videos con cada novedad.